Hi there, baby. This video is going to, this this video is going to be about this video is going to be why I prefer to believe the world is flat. Yeah, you see, the so-called universe that scientists claim exists all around us, supposedly. It's a rather big and scary, daunting place, isn't it? I mean, out in the far supposed reaches of space and the galaxies and the universe, there's like all kinds of big stars and black holes and everything, all very dangerous, very powerful things that that supposedly exist. And to be honest, I'm not going to make any bones about it, my son. But I've always been scared of the sun. Like, not a kind of offspring sun kind of, but I mean our sun. The sun in our skies. Earth star, supposedly, yeah. And that's because it's so big and bright and powerful. But yeah, even when I was young, there were these things I saw on TV which made me scared of the sun. Like when I was very young, there was this episode of Thunderbirds when some characters were in space getting close to the sun on a spaceship or something, and they were gradually getting hotter and weaker, and can't remember if that showed the sun looking all strange and black and mechanical or something, and yeah, even though that might not have been maybe scientifically accurate, it was still scary to me, as that wasn't what I expected the sun to be like when I was young. And then as I got older in like 1999, and I was doing my GCSE exams at high school in the summer of that year. There was once this documentary I once saw. Just suffering with my OCD for years. There was this documentary. There was this documentary I once saw on TV, because I used to be really into these space documentaries and whatnot. I still am really into lots of documentaries in general, like nature ones and whatnot, even though I don't watch them all that much anymore. Yeah, I don't watch them all that much anymore. But yeah, the space documentary I was seeing in 1999, it got to talking at one point about the sun and what will happen in its later life stages, and it talked about it becoming it talked about the sun becoming a red giant in the red giant phase of its later life, and it taught about how the sun would expand to envelop the closer planets such as Mercury and Venus and possibly the Earth itself, and or if it didn't envelop the Earth, or it would at least come so close to the Earth that at that point all life on Earth would have been totally fried to a non-existent crisp, so to speak. And and then the documentary showed this something like a computer-generated image or something, showing the sky, showing a viewpoint of what life would be like on the Earth at that point, with the sky being with most of the space in the sky being taken up by the shape of the big red sun so close to us. And well, that was quite traumatic to me, and at that point I didn't want to open my bedroom curtains for quite a while, and I felt uncomfortable washing at the sink near the bathroom window, and I was generally nervous about going out later on to take my exams. I didn't want to look at the sky or anything. I mean, once I was actually out there in the streets, I felt better, but yeah, it was still a bit of a nerve-wracking experience, especially being in a long street with not much traffic and generally not many people about in the foreseeable distance, so I did kind of feel alone, but I still managed to make it home with to and fro the school without without feeling much terror. And yeah, there was this other program I saw in the summer of 1999. Yeah, this was quite a terrible time of year to see these shows when it was getting hot in summer. I think 1999 summer was was a very hot summer, wasn't it? Yeah. And yeah. And I saw in the summer of 1999 this Twilight Zone episode called The Midnight Sun, and that episode started with the camera viewpoint being centered on a city street at daytime. And even though it seems strangely quiet and devoid of activity, it doesn't look too strange. It actually looked like quite a poignant scene until the narrator tells us in his foreboding voice that the time of day in this daylight scene is actually midnight, and that the life on Earth has taken a terrible turn for the worst, as somehow the Earth's orbit around the sun has changed, so that it's getting closer and closer to the sun on a daily basis. And yeah, the temperatures on Earth have supposedly risen so much so that the oceans are boiling pretty much, and the pavements are hot enough for eggs to be fried on them. I don't know if anyone actually tried that in the storyline, but I digress, Sonny Jim, I digress. And yeah, apparently in the story people were evacuating America in droves, trying to get to the highways to get to Canada, where it would temporarily, be cooler. And when I say cooler, I mean probably still really hot, but cooler compared to what it would have been like in America and presumably New York at that point in time. And yeah, yeah, it was still would have been just a matter of time at that point until Canada until Canada was uninhabitable to human and probably animal life as well. And yeah, the sad reality of the situation, well, the tragic reality of the situation for most of the evacuees was that they probably would have ended up just, frazzling to death in their cars on the packed highways due to not really being able to move anywhere due to the sheer volume of traffic that was trying to evacuate to Canada. And the story itself of the Midnight Sun episode of the Twilight Zone focused on these two women who had chosen to stay in their apartments, which I'm guessing was New York City somewhere, and it was their last few days of life on Earth. I mean, they didn't know it, but I'm sure it was pretty much obvious deep down in the pits of their stomachs if nothing changed and all. And radio, these radio newscasters would lose their sanity on the radios, giving the weather reports saying that the weather was obviously just going to be very hot, a ceaseless, never-ending, oppressive heat wave that was never going to end and just going to intensify and get worse until the end came. And what I found at the time, one of the things I found most freaky and terrifying about the episode was this painting that one of the women in the apartment had done, showing like this tower. It might have been Big Ben or something, with the sun looking massive behind it. And yeah, I imagine that'd be particularly scary to see that kind of vision with the sun looking massive in the sky and nothing else except a tower, the sight of a tower, to really distract you from the sheer terror of it and all. And things had gotten so bad in the storyline as well that the most physically able people in the area, like men and whatnot, they'd resorted to invading various apartments and spaces occupied by human tenants in order to try and raid the apartments and steal whatever paltry water reserves and such that such people had left in order to, spill the water over their heads for that momentary sensation of coolness, to give them that little bit of energy surge to help them last the next few minutes or so of oppressive heat before improvising and seeing what else they can do before eventually succumbing to the overbearing heat that they were all subjected to and all. I won't divulge too much into the ending though, because well, for one thing, I wouldn't want this video to be taken down or anything. But if you want to see the episode, you can look it up, I imagine. It was on YouTube last time I looked, I think, anyway. Yeah, and my anxieties towards the sun even manifest themselves in video games I sometimes play as well, like Fallout New Vegas, when say say my OCD is acting up and I'm over searching various wide open outdoor areas in the game, proceeding agonizingly slowly, and I start getting anxious about thoughts of like the afterlife, and I start feeling scared about having bad thoughts, bad accidental thoughts against God and whatnot, um, and um, and knowing the sun's shining big and bright in the sky, I'll start suffering OCD rituals which demand that I look up at the sun while having thoughts to undo the bad thoughts I have before I can continue on again. And that if I don't do that, then certain people such as myself and others might not get to heaven if I don't do such things. Yes, it's kind of a cruel illness, OCD, how it makes you do those things that you're scared of doing, anxious of doing sometimes, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. And yeah, and as a result, in games like Fallout New Vegas, as I probably mentioned, sometimes in order to avoid having to repeatedly look up at the sun when it looks all big and it's glaring down at me from the sky, because of how sometimes it looks massive at certain points and angles in the sky for some reason, even though it looks smaller from other angles in the sky in the game. It sometimes really shocks and freaks me out when it suddenly appears huge in the sky at various angles, especially if I'm in isolated, big open outdoor spots in the game with no one around and no enemies and whatnot. Especially if I don't have companions with me and such. And so as a consequence, of that, I'll often if it's daytime and I'm well, no, I won't often do it, but I'll be tempted to do it. If it's daytime and I'm about to go on a mission in the game, I'll be tempted to make my character sleep or rest for a while until it's night time and to go out there. And it's actually quite funny when you think about it, because there's some people and some playthroughs on YouTube that I've watched where players have been faced with the prospect of going on a mission and it's been getting dark in the game, and so they've made their characters wait or sleep because they would have found it too scary to go on the missions when it was dark with like the sinister enemies that might have been about around, as well as the tense atmosphere, as well as the tense, foreboding, sinister atmosphere that's often present in various locations in the game as well. Yeah, so in a way that's just another way that I suppose I'm such a weirdo in life, isn't it? Oh yeah, you can tell that just by looking at me in a way, can't you? Not that I'm complaining, I suppose, because I see beauty in my difference from the norm. And if you can't see that, then that's your loss, isn't it? Stick to all of the dumb cookie cutter types in the world, I tell you, because you aren't worthy of being around a man of my intellectual prowess if you can't appreciate my differences from all of the rest in the world, all of the sheeple that I call them. Yeah, oh, and talking about scare. Yeah, I'm not. It's not just the sun. I'm scared of. There's this big. I once saw this article about this planet that's supposedly many light years from the Earth, and the planet was actually supposed to be hotter than our sun, if you can believe that, since it was supposedly very closely orbiting this really, really hot, really, really bright white star, and it was supposedly orbiting that star so closely that the planet itself was literally in a process of melting, and it had this constant vapor trail following behind it, since that was the actual mass of the planet evaporating or melting as this super hot star melted its own planet that had been seemingly pulled in so close to it. Quite a terrifying prospect, isn't it? I mean, I know there was couldn't possibly have been probably any life on that planet at that point, but with me being a weirdo and not having the most rational mind in existence when you think about it, perhaps it won't surprise you all to know that to know that I often imagine physical objects and even planets and such to have a state to live in a state of consciousness, I suppose you could say, like us humans and animals and such. So that would be quite a terrifying, scary, debilitating fate, really, to be like to be like a living planet and to be stuck so close to this really hot, really bright, really large star, to be stuck so close to it that it's slowly melting you away to nothing, isn't it? I mean, I even find it scary enough just looking at pictures of the sun. So imagine being so close to a star in space that literally it's your whole world, so to speak, that you couldn't really see much of anything beyond it, like hardly any vacuum of space beyond it, or hardly any stars beyond it, or anything. That would just be that big star would just be pretty much it would just pretty much occupy your entire field of existence and your entire life, pretty much. It could drive you insane, couldn't it, if you were a living, if a planet was a living being and it was subjected to that kind of fate. And so this, my friends, is generally why I prefer to believe in the flat earth theory, that the world is flat. You see, I feel like the flat earth theory is much less scary and terrorizing, since I think that purports that the sun is only 32 miles in diameter, doesn't it? Though it's inside the filament of the earth, like inside the sky, so to speak, like the moon and such, and like the stars even. Because doesn't the Bible imply that? In Genesis, maybe, I'm not sure. And I mean, people might say that I'm showing limited knowledge of the Bible here, but really I think it's incredibly arrogant for anyone to say they have lots and lots of knowledge on the Bible, because how do we know if our interpretations of it are the right interpretations in God's mind? Yeah, very foolish and arrogant, I think, for people to claim that they have such great knowledge of the Bible, but at the same time I think it's incredibly foolish and arrogant as well for so-called professionals who extensively study space and extraterrestrial interstellar bodies and intergalactic phenomenon and such. I find it incredibly arrogant and misguided of them to think that they know what's on the all the way on the other side of the universe. Like they think they've seen stars all the way on the other side of the universe, and yet we've still never even visited our neighbouring planets such as Mars, really, and in fact, it's even debatable that we've ever even visited the moon, isn't it? So yeah, I do think it's foolish to blindly trust in what these so-called professionals say, who study space and interstellar matter and interplanetary bodies and such. So yeah, I prefer to believe in flat Earth theory. I mean, the sun's much less intimidating and scary when you think of it only being 32 miles in diameter, isn't it? And in a way, it's less scary thinking that the world isn't surrounded by that interminable black void of never-ending space, pretty much, isn't it? That isn't breathable at all to humans. I mean, I know that there's videos on YouTube showing cosmonauts and such doing supposed dives from outer space into the Earth, but that just seems ridiculous to me. I mean, how can just people in spacesuits get through the Earth's atmosphere without burning up, or why would people go up into space just to do ridiculous things like space jumps, like it's some kind of exciting sporting event or something? Aren't they supposed to be actually doing important constructive work up there? Yeah, it just strikes me as being incredibly strange and dubious, if you ask me. But anyway, we're getting close to the half-hour mark now, and I generally don't want to talk. I generally don't want to do video. I generally don't want to do videos for more than half an hour. So yeah, flat Eartherism for life, I suppose you could say. After all, it's better to trust our Creator, God, especially, and if it says in the Bible that the world's flat, I'm not sure about it, then we should trust that and trust what our loving, benevolent Creator wants us to believe. What God wants us to believe, rather than what so-called human experts want us to believe, when they all have their agendas and their motivations like money and such. Yeah, you can't really trust people like that when they claim to have your best interests in mind. I think when they've most likely just got their own best interests in mind, especially when you think of our limited understandings just of life on Earth and interhuman relations and such, never mind interstellar happenings and such. So with this, I bid you all farewell, my sons and daughters. Goodbye.